Welcome to the SFL Today. Tonight, the Atlanta Swarm take on the Tallahassee Pride in the SFL Fan Night Game of the Week. But first, myself and my color man tonight, Stephen Mullinex, will break down all of the early afternoon action and get you set for tonight's clash between the Swarm and the Pride. Stephen, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful, Cam. How are you?
I'm great. Hopefully the volume is of somewhat equal value here. I know we always struggle a little bit with that here at SFL headquarters, but hopefully we're sounding good. Here to break down all the Sunday afternoon action, and it was a busy day of SFL action. And, first, Stephen, why don't we just get it out of the way? The Queen City Corsairs topped the Dallas Roughnecks 49-28. Both teams scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, and I think 5 of those 6 touchdowns were in the final 4 minutes or something. Really, really bizarre ending there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that Queen City dominated this game, and those points that came for Dallas there in the end of the fourth quarter were against, for the majority of the time, against second-team defensive players. So it was just an all-out victory by the Queen City Corsairs, showing once again why they are the 4-time champions. I mean, they have started this season on a roll, beating the champion Mexico City Aztecs in week 1, and then just defending their home court in their home field with such tenacity today. They had everything going against Dallas. The passing game, the running game, everything was on point. And Dallas was just flushed through the entire game.
Got to give shout-outs. It's our first night as a Twitch affiliate. Bits going already in the chat. JDR Projects got 100. Vancouver Legion with 30. Duke Wilson with 20. Appreciate it. Curtis with 400. The Twitch savant, to use your words, Stephen. But back to the earlier action. Dallas falls to 0-2. Queen City goes to 2-0. You know, we've seen across the league, Stephen, a lot of teams kind of struggling and stumbling out of the gate, especially offensively, not the Corsairs.
Yeah, they have brought in a proven team build, a proven game plan, and they seem impervious to player progression. They have just built their team the right way. They have built their team to win right now, and they are doing so.
Volcano Forward, 35 bits. Thanks so much for that. Queen City jumped out to a 21-0 lead. They scored on all 4 of their red zone trips, touchdowns, in fact. So Queen City, very efficient there in the day's highest scoring game. Well, from the highest scoring game to the lowest scoring game, it may be a bit of a stunner, but the Houston Hyenas, for the first time ever, are shut out. And Alaska, who scored 44 points last week, only gets 13. And it was enough for the win. So Mighty RX, defensive coordinator for Alaska, top or number 1 scoring defense in the last 2 seasons, going up against Eddie Gage, new defensive coordinator in Houston, widely regarded as a very smart and sturdy defensive mind in CAG. And this game was a slobber knocker, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the last shutout in the SFL that I can remember was the Alaska Storm shutting out Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
They seem to have a tendency to do this defensively. You know that they're strong. What surprises me is offensively they have lost almost nothing going with a non-contract running back. They're going with a role player at running back. Even the role player substitute when he came in the fourth quarter looked like a star running back. It's amazing what Mighty has been able to do offensively. No doubt about his defensive prowess. Yes, super surprised about Houston not being able to score or generate more points, but you got to give it to Atlanta. They showed this in week 1. They're continuing to prove themselves in week 2. And, man, these two teams, Queen City and Alaska are suddenly emerging as the top tier teams here in the SFL early.
It's funny that Ash Odom played for Queen City last year, now plays for, played for Alaska last year, now plays for Queen City, and those two meet in Week 11. Stephen, Houston has not scored an offensive touchdown this season in 2 games. That's hard to believe. Have you
Yeah.
gotten to see any film on your cross-state rival here so far this year?
Yeah, I actually was able to watch some of today's game, and I just think it's just a matter of taking advantage of all of their opportunities early on here in the SFL league wide. Seeing a lot of these receivers and tight ends drop a lot of passes, and we're seeing a lot of routes that aren't being run correctly. That's going to change as player progression grows these players throughout the season. So I expect their offense in Houston to pick up, as well as Damon being a great offensive coordinator, a great coach, going to be able to figure out how to make this work. Like me, very similar to me, we're just struggling here to make it all work for us early.
Shout out to Alvin Washington. He had his successful play-by-play
Oh,
debut. What'd you
wonderful.
think, Alvin?
Wonderful. Oh, amazing. Obviously has the chops, has the golden voice, has everything that you'd want in a commentator. I think he's going to give you a run for your money, Cam.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely got some experience, been doing some good things for us on the back end, so we're excited to see where he goes. Well, from Houston to Carolina, it may have been the game of the day. The Carolina Skyhawks upset the Mexico City Aztecs and makes Shan Varner look real good on his upset pick from the podcast yesterday, 20-14, stopping a Matt Wilson game-winning drive. Remember, Matt Wilson's first ever fourth quarter comeback came against Carolina, and he almost did it again today. What a day for A.J. Francis. Twice had monster runs with Carolina pinned inside their own 5-yard line. And the Skyhawks, speaking of chops, get probably their most impressive victory in franchise history.
Yeah, absolutely. That's without question. If you're Mexico City, you're kind of hitting the brakes right now trying to figure out what's going on. But Carolina, give them so much credit. They came into this game with a game plan and executed it perfectly. Their defense came up huge, limiting Mexico City to 14 points, and they won the time of possession game, Cam. They controlled the clock. They kept that high-octane Mexico City offense with Ray Bentley there, that beast in the backfield, limited them to just under 17 minutes in the entire game. What a great, complete game by Carolina. Have to give them a lot of confidence coming off that win.
Did you leave the H off of huge on purpose just then in that analysis?
Bro, no.
Carolina dominates time of possession, 27-17 basically. And the crazy thing about it is Carolina up 13-0, just like against Tallahassee, came out to a hot start. They gave up the lead. Mexico City scored 2 back-to-back touchdowns, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again. You know, Carolina's just going to give this away, and they just didn't. They held their own. Giovanni Bolt, who got hurt last week, had a big pick as well.
Well, the one thing that you can say about Carolina through all of their seasons here in the SFL is they are mentally tough. They have been through a lot of bad seasons, and they have retained some of the best players and some of the most quality people in our league. And that says something about their mentality week in and week out. And that's starting right now. It's starting to win games for them.
All right, well, we're going to keep Mexico City on the screen. The game just ended before we got on the air, so we don't have the stats for you, at least visually. But Chicago loses 13-7 to Tulsa in a really head-scratching game for Chicago that just can't seem to get it going. Chicago and Mexico City, the two teams in the championship on the front page of Twitch, 40,000 people watched them play against each other just a couple of months ago, are now both 0-2 playing each other next week in the rematch.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that we're seeing some teams like Tulsa, who is I think is the most shocking team to come out of the Central right now, maybe in the entire SFL. They have been dominant in their play against some really great teams. And as far as Chicago is concerned, again, player progression, learning how to adjust our playbooks to players that aren't as highly skilled as they will be at the end of the season as they are now. Remember, this is the lowest. These groups of players are going to be skill wise, maybe for the rest of their careers, for the next few years. So some owners like myself, like Shan, we're still figuring out how to best utilize some of these lower level players, and I think that's what you're seeing here. But that don't take anything away from Tulsa. Tulsa is hot right now, and there's no signs that they're going to be turning back, joining that top tier group as a new team, which is amazing.
How many touchdowns have Tulsa given up in the first 3 quarters of games this year? 0. A big fat 0. Moving on. Oklahoma City at Sioux Falls today. The Renegades go down, and Oklahoma City, in almost identical fashion, lose a game thanks to a few wild momentum-changing plays. So last week, Corey Jones had the touchdown where he caught it off the deflection and then hurdled a defender and scored. And then Tulsa had an onside kick touchdown recovery for a touchdown, and that was the difference in that game. Today in Sioux Falls, in the snow, mind you, the Sparrows on the second to last play before the half force a fumble by Tiberius Bovine. They recover it in the in field goal range after the ball landed underneath A.J. Levy's back, and he pinned it against his back. And then the start of the second half kickoff, the kick was short, and I don't know if the kicker slipped in the snow or if the wind was blowing all that direction, but the kick was the kicker must have fell. Because Michael Moore recovered at about the 25-yard line. He took it all the way for a touchdown, and then Moore just 3 minutes later scored again. So Sioux Falls got 17 of their points in about a 5-minute window, and that was basically the game because Oklahoma City dominated the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the numbers here. Just looking at the number of first downs, the number of passing yards, it's clear that Oklahoma City offensively seemed to dominate this game. You look at the time of possession, they had the edge there. But it just appears to me that it's just one or two mental mistakes, and then you just never know when you talk about a snow game where the weather plays a factor. That's just this extra component that can just throw things in a tizzy, and obviously the case here. Oklahoma City, even though you lost the game, you got to feel positive about your performance, and sometimes you just gotta have dementia. And just forget about what happened in the last game and move forward because you did a lot of things right. And Sioux Falls, as far as they're concerned, hey, quality win for you guys. That you get it when you needed it. You got the plays when you needed it. Got to be encouraged for that. Both teams, I think, upward trend.
Jason 1347. Speaking of his squad, they're now 2-0, and he just put 500 put 500 bits in the chat, and Curtis says 1,500. Take that. I think Curtis is sitting on a ton of bits. I think he buys his groceries with Twitch bits. So,
lot of free time on his hands, apparently.
Yeah, X Factor. If you're trying to get or donate 75, don't put the space between the cheer and the 75. Son of a bits is going to be a new term. I think that we're going to coin here on the SFL Network. That's awesome. One more game to get to. Week 2 top performers, and then out to Florida for those of you waiting on Atlanta and Tallahassee here on the SFL today. What's our viewership looking like right now? Let's see. See if we can get a number on that. That would be 53. I got to remember all I got to do now is look down at my touchscreen, and we've got our viewership. So hopefully that picks up as we get kicked off from Florida. Last game to go over from the afternoon. San Antonio beats San Francisco down 23-7. Although it wasn't even that close. Probably San Antonio got a brilliant one-handed grab from Daley Holder. May have been the best catch of the day. And there you see the big stat there. 2 trips in the red zone for San Francisco and no points to show for it, and they lose the game by 2 scores.
Yeah, it's just not a good trend here for San Francisco early. Obviously, a new team still training in a very experimental type team build. So still struggling to figure some things out. As far as San Antonio is concerned, hey, they showed last week against Dallas. They started off with a solid win against us, and they're just continuing that trend. They've got some underrated wide receivers there. They've got two monsters that they put out there on the field that can wreck your afternoon and your night. Trust me, it wrecked my week last week. So don't underestimate San Antonio. They're 2-0 for a reason. They've got some quality players over there. If they could get just a little bit more out of their running game and German, this team could be elite, and could be elite early, and it could be elite when the postseason comes.
We got to go through this here because I find it fascinating. San Antonio's 2-0, Sioux Falls is 2-0, Alaska's 2-0, Queen City's 2-0, Tulsa's 2-0. Tulsa, San Antonio, Sioux Falls were not playoff teams last year. Of the six 2-0 teams that I just rattled off there, is it six? Five. Of the five 2-0 teams that I rattled off there, which one are you most impressed with through the first 2 weeks, Stephen?
I've got to say Tulsa. It's just even going against your mentor, so to speak, in Chicago. I mean, the team that you went to the championship game with, and to come out in your first season and beat them, it's just so impressive, so early. Deion Hawkins, congrats to you and your crew. You're doing it right. You're proving the haters wrong. And you're really, that Central Division, which I think a lot of people would be the weaker division, is proving not to be. And that's the great thing about the SFL, and it's a great thing about player progression. It has thrown all of these teams into the hat now. Everybody seems to have an equal chance, and we're seeing the teams that had the better builds, that have the better playbooks to meet those builds. We're seeing them excel early. Tulsa, for me, the early surprise, and the one I'm most excited to see throughout the season.
Your week two top performers from the earlier games. Joey Langdon was 25 of 35, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Talk about a complete turnaround for Joey Langdon. He's got to be in the early conversation, very early conversation for most improved player of the year. Ash Odom reached the end zone 3 times, 142 yards on 29 carries there, bell cow. Your boy, Shea Carroll, had 113 yards and 3 touchdowns of his own. Michael Moore, we talked about him earlier, receiving touchdown and a kickoff return touchdown. He was the momentum swinger. And San Francisco's linebacker, Chester Field, 19 total tackles, matching
Wow.
Slyn Shady's 19 tackles last week. Field had 15 solo, Shady 18, 4 of them for loss. Your player of the early afternoon,
Yeah,
Steven?
absolutely. Absolutely, for me, it's Odom. It's got to be the running back, Odom, and maybe because they played against us, but also they dominated so much in the passing game that Odom really had just kind of a light day. I mean, surprisingly, 29 carries is a light day for him, but he could have done so much more damage if their passing game was on point. So for me, he just not only just ran through us, our defensive line, but he did so with ease. He showed power. He showed quickness. For me, it's Odom for this afternoon until our next game, maybe.
Vancouver and London take each other on tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern, and I believe midnight in London. And then Indianapolis and St. Louis taking on each other, wrap up the Week 8 Central, 9 Eastern on Twitch TV. The first game is Curtis and Fletch. The second game, Mike Daggs and Matt Wilson. So with that, we'll head out to Florida. Steven's got some